who created personal beings, an intelligent God who created intelligent beings, a moral God who created moral beings. And Catholics hold that view, Baptists, Presbyterians, Episcopalians, all of them hold that view as far as I know.
My second question is, why is Christianity the best or the most coherent answer to those four questions? The way I see it, that is a subjective opinion. It's a statement of belief. What is your because ... part of that?
Well, certainly you told us atheism doesn't answer the question.
The topic of tonight is Christianity true?
Yeah. Well, you asked me why does it answer, and my answer to the question is, why does it answer the questions better than other points of view? Your point of view, you said, doesn't even attempt to answer the question. Offers no answers. You know, I want a philosophy or religion. Everybody's got a philosophy of life. They may not be able to articulate it very well, or some just may be, if it feels good, do it. But if we adopt these Christian principles and the Christian moral code, it promotes the highest well-being of all, and it works to prevent the highest misery of all. I would hope we would all assume that peace is better than war. Well, if men universally love their enemies, as Jesus taught, that would eliminate war. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You don't want anybody lying to you, so don't you lie. You don't want anybody cheating you, so don't you cheat. You don't want anybody murdering you, don't you murder. You don't want anybody robbing from you, don't you rob. But most men will rob, steal, and cheat if they think they can get away with it. But the Christian refuses to rob, steal, and cheat, even if he thinks he can get away with it, because it's not virtuous. So Christianity promotes the highest good of all and works to prevent the highest misery of all. And it gives us rules and boundaries. We need rules and boundaries. In sports, there's rules and boundaries that make the game. It's 3 strikes, you're out. You can't make up your own rules, as a lot of people want to do with life, and say, you know, I get 4 strikes before I'm out. You know, you better not cheat, but I'll cheat you if I think I can get away with it. I'm having a little bit of trouble understanding your signs there. Oh, you were down to the seconds?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
You say that Christianity offers the best answers to these questions better than all other systems, and that if everybody accepted Christianity, then the entire world would be better off, a better place. Is that pretty accurate?
Yes.
This is not intentionally inflammatory, but I think it's worth mentioning that there was a time in history when Christianity ruled, and it was the Dark Ages, and nothing was accomplished for centuries, and people were living in misery. I disagree that when Christianity is the way of life, that the highest good is provided for mankind. My question is, when you say that Christianity is or offers the most coherent and most satisfactory answers to these 4 questions, in order to say that, it follows that you have studied every religion and every philosophy that exists or could exist and compare them, and you are concluding that Christianity offers the best one. So my question is, in what way does Christianity offer a better answer to the question of origins than Norse creation mythology?
Well, first of all, of course, obviously, I've studied all religions and all philosophies. I've studied the major religions, I would say, of the world, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and they all agree there's a creator. I know there must be a creator, and he must be personal. Design requires a designer. A book requires an author. A building requires a builder. This book, God, I have it up here somewhere, you know, required an author. I once had your point of view. I was once an atheist. I was a college professor, dropped out, ended up living on a hippie commune in Africa. And one day I was watching the sunset in the Atlantic Ocean. And I looked behind me and I saw the full moon rising simultaneously with the sunset. And I concluded there must be a God. There's design in the universe.
That's a textbook example of a non sequitur fallacy in logic. I'm not trying to make it, I'm really not. I'm just saying that the conclusion that there must be a God because of the way that the Earth and the moon orbit around the sun, or the moon orbits the Earth, but has absolutely nothing to do with whether a God exists or not, unless you're presupposing that a God created that.
I say it, God's a necessary being. It's necessary that a building have an architect, that a painting have a painter. We can go into one of the art galleries around campus, see the portrayal of a beautiful landscape. We know there was an artist. We may not have seen the artist paint it, but we know there had to be an artist. And strangely enough, men then could go outside and maybe look at the actual landscape that the painter painted and assume it got there as a result of time, chance, and matter. It was an accident of natural forces. I say it requires a personal God, a rational, sentient being. God's a necessary truth.
I mean, you're of course entitled to your opinion, but saying that you know that there must be a God because of these arguments is it's equivocating knowledge with belief. Knowledge, I mean, this is a contested definition, but the basic is a justified truth belief, and you justified it, and obviously you believe it, but the real question is whether it's true and objective reality or not. And there are a couple different ways that we can know objective reality as far as we know, and I mean, some people argue that there's no way to know whether we know objective reality or not, but one way is by looking at evidence, another way is by using mathematics and logic, and the evidence is against that argument. I mean, as far as where mankind came from, there are very good answers to that question that fit the evidence very, very well, that are very well understood. Just last week, I was at the Natural History Museum in New York City, and they have a whole exhibit of evolution, and I saw the skeleton of Lucy, the proto-human, and
What's the question?
I was responding to what you were saying. In your opening statement, you talked a lot about the Bible. You quoted John in a couple of places.
Can I ask you a question again then? How do you account for the laws of logic? They're not something you can see. They're not something you can touch. You appeal to them. You're asking me to be logical. I say the laws of logic require a logician. We believe them. We try to apply them as best we can. Occasionally, I suppose we all make errors in logic occasionally, but we know that these are laws that we appeal to. How do you account for those? Where do they come from? It seems to me they require a supreme logician.
I don't know where they come from, but I know that they work. And
how do you know? I thought you didn't gonna know anything.
Well, they seem to work. There are better answers to that question, but logic is discovered by looking at the way the universe works.
How do you know your senses are reliable? How do you know your observations are reliable? How do you know what you see, what you touch, what you smell? How do you know that's reliable? That's the scientific method. Science studies the physical world. What I'm dealing with here is metaphysics, beyond the physical. That's the existence of God. The physical world requires God.
You're making an assertion that there is a metaphysical without a justification for that. And if you want to say that logic doesn't apply, I mean, it's a case of special pleading. You haven't justified why there is a metaphysical or how you could know that. To get back to my question, though, I do believe that the Bible is one of the most important books in the history of the West and probably the whole world. I wish that more people would read it in Hebrew and Koine Greek if possible.
I can agree on that.
That doesn't mean it's true any more than the Quran or the Upanishads are true. What I'm saying
It seems
is,
to me you're saying you can't know anything is true.
well,
You can't know anything is true. How can you know anything is false?
you can know what's coherent and what's incoherent. My question is, if you want to cite the Bible as a primary source, as evidence for your arguments, you're basically just adding one more layer of something that you have to justify or something that you have to prove. You further, in addition to your arguments, you further cite the Bible as backup for those arguments. You have the burden of proof now also that the Bible itself can be trusted as credible and accurate, and that it has survived to us unaltered and intact, and are interpreting it correct. So my question is, can you justify that the Bible is credible and accurate, and that it has survived to us to the present unaltered and intact, and that you're interpreting it correctly?
Well, certainly I do also appeal to the Bible. Epistemology is what we know and how we know it. Virtually anything any of us claim to know, even in the field of science, we know by citing authorities. You know, the scientific, what you consider scientific facts and so on that you claim, you probably have not actually put them to the test in the laboratory yourself. You're assuming that the books you read by the scientists, they're the authority, you assume that they're right. So I appeal to the Bible. Now really, the Bible's not one book.
Of course.
The Bible is 66 books, compiled in one volume by at least 40 different writers, written over a period of approximately 1,500 years, and they're in agreement on the basic issues of life. And, you know, if your professor in one of your classrooms makes an assertion, and you say, well, back that up, Professor, probably one of the first things he's going to do is cite other scholars that agree with him. And the more scholarship he has behind him, the more credibility he has. Well, then, of course, you might look into the credibility of the scholars themselves. But certainly, though that might not prove his point, it certainly gives evidence to prove the point. He might then give you rational arguments. He might appeal to what you intuitively know. He might appeal to what you've experienced in life. I know God. I know Jesus Christ personally. I have met him. And I am a witness to his resurrection, which the Bible affirms that he rose from the dead. And I have met him. So I know the Bible's true. I talk with God. He talks with me.
Again, you're equivocating knowledge with belief. I grant you that you believe in God.
Well, you can't know anything, so what difference does it make?
All right, let's try one last question.
The things that you were just saying are assertions, and you haven't showed that the Bible is any more credible as a source than any of the other religious texts available for study.
Well, I thought you sort of said that. You know, the Bible's a great book.
It's a good source of stories, and you can learn a lot about
Does it
history.
have any historical reliability?
Not in the sense
Is
that
there any excluding the miracles?
it records some things that actually happened, to record some things that probably didn't happen.
Do you know any other book that would be more reliable if you wanted to study the ancient Middle East from a historical perspective?
Well, I mean, there are many. Cicero and Caesar, and I mean, there are lots of books that are written about history.